that, everyone? Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Star Wars discussion panel at AwesomeCon. I'm informally calling this the State of the Galaxy. For introductions, my name is Bria Lavornia. I am a staff writer for Tasha Station, where we just come to report news, talk about the expanding universe. Occasionally I get roped into any of those projects, like reading 130 expanded universe books, including Crystal Star. But yeah, I'm a writer, and I'm serving as the moderator for this panel. And with that, we'll just move down the line, although I bet a lot of you know who this is.
I'm Timothy Zahn. I've written some Star Wars books.
I'm John Horton. I'm Dak, but also known as Bespin Boba these days.
I'm Rod Hanna. I do the Star Wars webcomic Blue Milk Special, and
I'm Leanne Hanna. I do the Blue Milk Special comic with Rod.
On the Tasha Station podcast, we like to start things off by going, how did you get into Star Wars? But we'll also open that up for some of these people and say, how did you get involved in the Star Wars universe? Leanne.
I've been a fan of Star Wars since I was young, and Rod and I were. I'm an artist, so I've done illustration work for. I used to work on the He-Man comic, and I've worked with Rob Zombie on stuff, and I'm always doing projects. So Rod's a writer, and we were trying to find a way to work on something together that we could share. And we're both fans of Star Wars, and so we created this webcomic called Blue Milk Special, and it's kind of taken off. We've done it for 5 years now, and done about 600 strips. We parody the original Star Wars trilogy for now, and right now we're into Return of the Jedi. So.
I was introduced to Star Wars back in England. I actually was born in England, and when I was 5 years old, I moved out to New Zealand. But I remember my first Star Wars memory was I was sitting on a little potty. I was probably 4 years old, and I had a little black blanket around me, and I was watching Darth Vader come down that hallway, the corridor with the stormtroopers, and I was terrified. And some people say it kind of scared the what out of me. But that was my first Star Wars memory, and ever since that, I just loved it. Couldn't get enough of the universe, and so the opportunity to work with Leanne on a project, I couldn't pass it up. So, yeah, Star Wars is just what we do, and as a fan, it's really cool to be able to turn your creativity into something, that you can share with people through the internet.
Well, I guess I've got sort of 3 or 4 different incarnations. The first actually is the most pedestrian. I got cast in the movie, which was pretty pro forma, but obviously it's the one that I think interests you the most as fans. But I want to move on to the other iterations. When I left show business, I went back into, this galaxy, and was finding myself in the suburban context just down the road here in Annapolis, Maryland, as a single-parent dad, president of the PTA, and suddenly I realized discovered that, there is a universe out here of Star Wars fans, many of whom I guess are in the room today. And so in 1998, with the re-releases, suddenly I had new life in the Star Wars community. And if you saw me giving hugs to these wonderful young ladies here, that sort of coming out happened in 1997 and 1998. They presented me, they're Club Jade, but they were the Star Ladies, and I met Tim Zahn at that point with Mike Stackpole and Anna. I was presented with a button, which unfortunately, Nancy, I could not find, but I have it, and it says, "I'm dead." The third iteration was when my lovely daughter Emily decided that she wanted to go down to Celebration 5 in Orlando, and we went down there, and I reacquainted myself with a lot of my friends from Empire Strikes Back, people I hadn't seen in 30 years. And so I started doing the convention circuit again, and that was in 2010, I guess it was. And Emily is now working as a volunteer for Mary Franklin. She worked with Nancy on Star Wars Celebration 6 and got a taste for doing these conventions. And then last year, I guess this recent iteration, Lucasfilm asked me to blog for them. So if anybody's followed the Lucasfilm Star Wars blog site, you'll see a John Dak Morton. Actually, that's me. And I blog this, and hopefully I'll be able to say something about this wonderful gathering we have today. So that's my story.
I got into Star Wars second night it was showing at the theaters. Hadn't been able to get to there the first night. I was working on a computer problem that never got resolved, but never mind that. Sat down in the theater. Okay, this is getting good reviews. The theater's packed. That says something good. Okay, long time ago, Galaxy Car. Okay, that's okay, kind of cool. There goes a ship, and there comes another ship. It keeps coming. It keeps coming, and it keeps coming. It was the first time in any movie I had a sense of size, that they've done that so well. And by the time the engines cleared to the top of the screen and you're seeing the whole Star Destroyer, I knew I was going to like this movie. And I did. And I saw it 17 or 18 times, with a different woman each time. No girlfriend, but a lot of female friends, and this was a good movie to show to them. In 1989, I was asked to do the Star Wars, the Thrawn trilogy. Many of you have already heard that story. If not, we'll cover it next week. One of the interesting things looking back on that was when I started writing full-time in 1980, one of the records, yes, actual vinyl records, that was in my rotation to play while I worked were the Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back soundtracks. And I remember thinking while I'm slaving over notepads at that time, or notebooks, if George Lucas can come out of essentially nowhere and make it big, maybe I can too. It's kind of ironic when you look back at it on that. But yeah, I've not done any blogs. I just do these books, and that seems to work okay so far.
My story is much less interesting than that. I don't have a clear memory of the first time I saw Star Wars, but I know I was 2 years old, and that was also the first time I had chocolate cake, so that was a pretty good day. Aside from that, though, I've just always been immersed in the Star Wars universe. I remember being like 6 or 7 and going to see the special editions. I'm sorry for dating myself. And obviously I fell down the rabbit hole, given I'm sitting here as Jaina Solo right now. I know, I'm sitting next to the creator. There we go. So yeah, that's that. Sorry, that was bad transition. So let's talk about where Star Wars is right now. We don't know much about Episode 7. As much as the news blogs would like you to think, we know about 3 things. We know it's 30 years after Return of the Jedi, and we know R2-D2 is going to be in it. That is all we know, for sure. We don't know. We can assume the big 3 will be in it. We can assume Chewbacca might be in it, given rumors. But given the rumors, you know, any actor who ever touched the stage could possibly be in it. So let's start with the easy one. Did any of us ever think the sequel trilogy would really happen?
No.
I'm a little more positive. I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
I guess no. I mean, I think because the prequels happened and there was such a big kind of gap, and they seem to be focusing on Clone Wars in a different era, I wasn't really sure whether they're ever going to get back to, you know, the original trilogy that I originally got hooked on. So, yeah, I was really surprised. I think most people probably were, right?
I thought that it might happen after Disney bought Star Wars.
I think we got that announcement at the same time. I have this strange memory of just frantically blogging all night because, oh no, Disney bought it. Oh god, sequel trilogy! Panic! So what are we hoping to see here? I mean, we're probably not.
Let me just elaborate a
Sorry.
little bit, because I was being cute on that one. The reason I was not expecting a 7, 8, 9 is because the way Walker, and once he dies, it seems like that's kind of the end of the story. So that's why I was I was assuming he's recast his original vision, and now this is over. So yeah, I was not expecting it because the story seemed to be ended at that point, the way you redone it.
And we got so many books set after Return of the Jedi, I'm not going to try and count them right now, but from your Thrawn trilogy to the New Jedi Order to the current series that are going on now to the X-Men books. So what do we think, what are we hoping to see? What do we think we're actually going to see? I mean, I think it's fair to say a direct adaptation probably won't be happening. So sorry for anyone who thought we were getting a Thrawn trilogy, although I think that would be amazing as an animated series. So what are we hoping to see? What do we think we'll get?
I'll take this one to start with. First of all, yes, the movies are not going to be adaptations of anything expanded universe. However, as I've been pointing out to people, Disney paid $4 billion for this stuff. They're going to mine it, and once 7, 8, and 9 out of the way, and once they've cleared their palate of all the side movies they're planning to do, they've got 4 TV networks they've got to fill with programming. So I am hoping, don't say this that Zahn said it might happen, because this is just speculation, but I could see the possibility of an ABC Thrawn miniseries someplace down the line. I would watch it. My other hope is that someplace along the line we will do that. ABC will launch an evening of the Jedi saga, X-Wing Rogue Squadron, and maybe the Mara Jade Chronicles. They would own whatever night they put those 3 shows on. So there are all sorts of possibilities. Disney did not pay $4 billion just for to do a few movies. They're going to use as much of what they can of the expanded universe as they can get, so they can use. So we will see, I think, bits and pieces of the various books, the various series show up over the next 20 years, maybe 30 years. But as long as Star Wars keeps making money, and remember, you know, that sounds crass, but that's how the mouse keeps its people employed, that we will continue to see more Star Wars. And as long as it's good, we will sit there and pay good money to watch it happen.
Yeah, I think everything Tim said I agree with, because I think what we all need to remember is that you know, the universe is there's no end, and so the same thing would be true for Star Wars. So if you know the extended universe, the EU, is not necessarily fixed, it's still expanding. So to give you an example of why I think the idea of having your chronicles on Mara Jade or Boba Fett or anything of that nature, whatever the spin-offs would be, is if you think back 20 years or so when I met the folks from Club Jade and all that crowd, which would include Tim and Anna and Mike, they were talking about fan fiction. There was West End Games, if anybody remembers that organization. People were writing. There was fan fiction galore. And then 10 years after that, I don't know how many people know the film Revelation, but there was then suddenly you had fan films coming out. So if there's legitimacy, if there's creativity that's coming from the fan direction, that's expanding the universe, shall we say, the same thing should be true for any of the more commercial enterprises, Disney being one. So I think what I hope, and I think Mary Franklin and others that are kind of on the interface between the fan community and the commercial organization of Lucasfilm or Disney, what you call it, is that there's a collaboration, there's a community spirit of sorts. There's tensions in that, but through that collaboration and through those tensions, the universe, the galaxy far, far away, will continue to expand, drawing in elements of what's already in George's sandbox. And who knows where it's going to go. I don't know that we think that the core of Star Wars is bounded by Anakin's story. And I don't think that that's what we want to take from your.
That's right. That's what I assumed from the way the prequels were set up. Obviously, that's not the case.
Yeah, and my yes was rather flipped as well. I want to, all that informs that is the time that I was in Empire Strikes Back, which was a small 4-week period. And I will say that I had lunch every day with Mark Hamill. We were joined at the hip because his schedule was mine as far as those went. And Chris Malcolm would join us. We had David Prowse frequently, but Hamill and I were always together. And I will say at that time, a lot was shared that wasn't giving away any trade secrets that was going to get him in trouble. But it was very clear what he conveyed to me, a lowly supporting actor, was that the Star Wars was going to be with us, and there were going to be 9 films. Now, what was on those storyboards, I had no idea, and maybe Tim has some insights. So that's why I said I expected that there would be another trilogy. What the nature of that trilogy would be, I can't presume to even speculate. But George, I think, is dogged enough to have wanted to see that part of his vision fulfilled. And so I'm not surprised. I guess I am surprised to the extent of how it seems to have come about. I couldn't have anticipated that. But there is a logic to that. It makes sense to me.
I'll actually add that I read at some point there was a plan for 12 movies. So it's fluctuated around as being like 9 movies, 12 movies over the years, a story. So
And that's the thing, George has changed his mind so many times that what looks like reality at one point may be different a week later.
Right.
But it was not.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what I understand is they kind of wrap things up in Return of the Jedi. The initial plan was to stretch it out to be maybe 9 movies by that point. But the nature of the way things went with the production of Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, things got wrapped up storyline-wise in Return of the Jedi, rather than keeping that story going for another 3 films. So maybe some of that material is what's the source for this new set of sequels. I'm not sure whether you guys heard much about storylines or anything that existed back then.
I mean, you've seen some of the original storyline he had for the classic movies, or at least the first movie, and then you look at the actual movies, very, very different. So whatever he had back then, it has changed, altered, fine-tuned, all of that, which is why at one point it was 9, one point it was 12, one point, okay, I think I'm done with 6. Okay, we're going to do some more. So, and that's creator's prerogative. He can do any of that until it actually, in fact, we will know what's in episode 7 approximately 2 hours after, a long time ago, and without too far. And I'm not going to count anything as accurate until then. So, but yeah, there have been all sorts of changes that George has done over the years, and that's good. It's kept us on our toes, and hopefully it's gotten a better final product all the way along the line.
If you do want to see what Lucas was originally planning for his A New Hope story, his original draft, the Star Wars is a series that Dark Horse is putting out right now. It's got gorgeous art, number 1, and it's a pretty interesting read, so that should be in trade in a couple months if you're interested.
I don't know if people are kind of worried at how things might go because with Disney's involvement, but I'm kind of optimistic. I think that, at least in terms of the movies, it's been a while since prequels came out, and I think that this is going to bring a whole new generation of fans in. I mean, maybe we can get some TV specials or series.
Not the holiday special.
Exactly. That is an experience, though. If you haven't ever seen the holiday special, you should at least watch it once because it's way worse than you think. But I think it's kind of exciting, and I'm interested to see. I know George is going to have some involvement, but I'm kind of interested to see what other people kind of bring new life into the franchise. So I'm kind of optimistic.
Bear in mind a couple of things. I know there was a lot of reaction when Disney bought Lucasfilm. 2 points. One, Kathleen Kennedy is at the helm of Lucasfilm, and she has a marvelous track aspect. We also have the fact that Disney bought Pixar and Marvel and did not screw them up. They've got a track record of knowing that, gee, I just spent $4 billion for something. I should not mess what made it worth $4 billion of my dollars to begin with. So all that together, it doesn't mean the movies couldn't be made badly, but it means we've got a good chance that they will be done well. You've got the creative team at Disney, and remember they can poach people from Pixar and Marvel as well for advice and all of that. They've got the creative team, they've got the money, and they know that the fans really want something good. I think there's a really good chance they will deliver.
Yeah, I was going to say something about, I always tend to see the glass half full all the time. What has struck me in the last year or so is I've gotten to know the folks like Pablo Hidalgo and Dave Filoni and others from being over at Celebration 2 Europe, these young folks, and they're young from my perspective, grew up with Star Wars. You have to remember that Tim and I did not grow up with Star Wars. So all of their thinking, and I speak, I think, for Pablo Hidalgo, for example, is that the joy that he experienced, which I know that he shares with most of you folks that are out there, is he grew up with this stuff, and he played on the playgrounds and in his rec rooms as a young little guy doing Star Wars games, and that's with his action figures and so forth, and that's so much of the people that I observe that are in Lucasfilm today, is that they own it to the same degree as you all own it. Now, here's the thing. We all have to accept that Disney is a corporation, and we all think of George as somebody who kind of started off life as an anti-corporate person. I mean, he came off of the plains of his own Tatooine and fought Hollywood in many ways. And Hollywood was this kind of sprawling mess in the 1970s. And believe me, I know about Hollywood in that period because that's when I was working in the film business. And so he was very much of a rebel. And so, but we all sort of get a little more conservative with age, and we see things a little bit more realistically than as we do when we're young and idealists. So at some point he came to terms with figuring out how to continue his legacy, and he sold out to Disney. Now I'm not putting any kind of connotation on selling out, but as Tim says, Disney has got an investment that they want to protect. Now, Tim also used the word collaboration or collaborative. I think the beauty of what George did when he set up his vision in Star Wars and making his films is it was always a collaborative enterprise. If anybody reads the book that Algene Harmetz did on Casablanca, the making of Casablanca, you will find that actually the idea of an auteur with the film business is a real mistake. It's the collaborations which can produce great diamonds, and Casablanca I don't think anybody would say is a bad film. It's probably a better film because of all the creative tension that was involved when that was made. The same thing can be said for Empire Strikes Back. And I think in the future, that anything that comes out of Star Wars, again, here's Dak saying glass is half full. I think if the collaborative aspects where everybody's bringing their best to the table, it could be very good. And I think what behooves you all as fans and what behooves Disney as the engine that's going to make all this continue is that this collaboration is never severed, because the question of ownership, who owns Star Wars? Well, I don't think there is an owner. I mean, the lawyers might see it one way, but Disney would make a great mistake, and I think they value what Mary Franklin, for example, is trying to do, of ignoring what the fan base is is saying, these are kind of the things that we would like to see, because you're part of this culture. So I would say the channels hopefully will remain open at all times. And I don't know what the history is of Disney insofar as, was there a sense of ownership of Mickey Mouse to the extent that there is a sense of ownership of Star Wars? I think not, but somebody might debate me on that. But I think Disney does recognize that they've got to be very, very sensitive to the input that's coming from you all, because it does relate to the way George has sort of structured it and enabled great creative people like Tim to flourish on behalf of everybody.
I just want to jump in there because we do a Star Wars webcomic and it's a fan project. So when we set out to do it, we were very conscious of working, within the rules. It's owned by Lucasfilm. It's not something we want to publish to make money from because we're not operating with a license. So once we heard that Disney was had bought Star Wars basically from George, my first thought was, oh, they're gonna come hit us over the head with all this legalese. But we've always tried to make a point that we're a parody. We're operating under fair use laws, and we're a non-profit. So we're just another little fanzine, except we do a webcomic and it's available to read online. But yeah, there was a kind of sinking feeling for a moment when we heard Disney was involved, because we weren't sure what that meant, because the relationship seemed very good towards fans with Lucasfilm, but suddenly that relationship could have gone in a different direction. But from my understanding, things are very cool and they're very supportive and tolerant of fan creativity. So I'm just respectful of the laws. So I sort of throw that in there since it kind of tied in.
And just, John, basically, we're all saying this, but just to put it into words, Disney, they've been around long enough to understand this is a marathon, not a sprint. They do not want to do 3 movies and leave scorched earth around them. They want to be doing Star Wars stuff and making money from it for the next 50 years. And they're going to be sensitive to what the fans want and what the fans are expecting. So yeah, they're not going to just do scorched earth just to do it.
And Star Wars isn't just the movies, of course. We've got the upcoming Star Wars Rebels series. We just had those 4 arcs from the Clone Wars go live on Netflix about a month ago. And then, of course, we also have the expanded universe. At the moment, we only have 1 confirmed book on the schedule, and that is the Luke novel, the Empire Rebellion series, which is a little bit unnerving. I think it's fair to say that plenty of us expanded universe fans are a little bit worried about what may or may not happen to the established canon, and it's okay to worry. We just can't get angry. That's where things go bad. But I would like to propose the multiple universe theory as a possibility. Yes, Pablo Hidalgo has said that they have a story group together to try and figure out what will be the altogether canon. But what do you guys think of the possibility, I guess this is more for you, Tim, of them creating, oh, well, here is universe A and here is universe B, just to give them names. So we could keep getting stories about Jaina and Ben, and I think that's all the Skywalkers left.
The alternate universe has always made me a little bit worried. I don't know what they're going to do with the expanded universe. My sense is, and I got a little bit of hint from this, is it's probably going to go somewhere, something like the prequels, where all the Mandalorians, a lot of the stuff that had been written about that era was fine, except that Boba Fett's backstory was drastically changed. So all that stuff got kicked off into alternate universe type of thing. My sense is that unless they want to take something from a given book or comic or whatever, that will kind of remain real. If they, for example, picked Pelion and used him in episode 7 and changed his character, then that would kind of change what he was in the expanded universe. You understand what I'm saying? They're not going to go through a clear cut, but they may pull chunks of sod out here and there and transplant them. Again, that's just a sense of what they're probably going to do, given what they've done in the past with the prequels. And I don't know what they're going to put in. They've kept a lid on that that's probably more tight than what's happening at the State Department. But they're keeping everything very close to the vest. We will not know what's going on until they do casting, and probably not even then. As I say, if they had, the Grand Admiral Thrawn come in and he's got red skin instead of blue skin, I can cover that. I could fix that. I could connect it back to my stuff, okay? So we authors are really good at spackling, hand waving, and all of that sort of stuff. So depending on what they did, I bet I could make it work. And I certainly would be interested in doing more Star Wars books. For those of you who were fans of the old Monk TV series, I've got 10 Star Wars books. Monk would approve of that number. But I would be willing to go to a number 11 if they asked me.
I'm just saying, Solo's 12 would be a great sequel to Scoundrels.
Well, actually, as for Scoundrels, Solo's 11 was my original title for that, and Lucasfilm decided they didn't think, or Del Rey and Lucasfilm together decided Warner Brothers might get, their lawyers' knickers in a twist. Though, as I pointed out, Solo, you got that trademarked, and 11 is a number. What are they going to say? Let's call it that, and if the lawyers get upset, we'll change it, but they decided not to risk it. But as it happens, I do have an idea for the Solo's 12, the sequel, in mind. We will see if that ever comes to pass.
I have one self-indulgent question.
Yes.
Is Winter involved again?
Winter would definitely be involved, yes.
Sorry.
You don't take away any of the characters when you add another ocean, so you just add more.
I just want to make sure. I have a little strong feeling at the end, so what is that shoe?
I actually had a question for you as well, too. How do you feel about the expanded universe? Once you write a story and you create these characters, and then someone else comes in, and obviously years and years go on, and these characters change. I mean, is it easy to let go of these characters and see them turn into something maybe you didn't envision, or?
A friend coined the term out-of-character experience for that. Going in when you sign the contract that Lucasfilm owns all of this stuff. And if you're not willing to watch your characters get used, abused, changed, whatever, you don't sign the contract. It's worth it just to play in the galaxy far, far away, George's sandbox. But yeah, it's a little difficult sometimes to watch what other writers may do with your characters. You just have to put on your big boy pants and accept it. Although I will tell you that one of the strangest experiences was getting cornered by a woman at a convention who was very upset at what Mara Jade had been doing in one of the books. And I explained to her, I didn't write that book. It didn't matter. She didn't care. It was my character. I was responsible for what had happened to her. So, that sometimes gets strange, but most of the time they realize if my name's not on the cover, I have no responsibility whatsoever or credit for what you didn't like or did like. You accept the fact this is somebody else's property, this is somebody else's character, and you move on.
I do have something to add about the expanded universe, is that I've grown up a fan of a lot of different franchises over the years. Doctor Who, the Avengers. I've seen things change over the years, and you have to accept that there's going to be new, not necessarily reboots, but reimaginings, new series. So franchises go through a lot of changes, and with the expanded universe, for me, they can never take away those books. Those books have been written. There's not going to be some big mass book burning, I hope. So this material exists, and even if it has to be continued through fandom, that expanded universe that everybody's familiar with is still there. So the idea of a universe A, universe B, I can live with that.
With Star Wars especially, you can always fall back on this was reported wrong. Yeah, this the faulty reporting, somebody had an axe to grind, the archives were lost, this is the best thing you can come up with. Yeah, they said Thrawn's skin was blue and it was actually red. Somebody screwed up in the color separation area for the newspaper, whatever. You know, you can always, especially this kind of universe and the turmoil that's happened with the rebellion and Empire and all of that, you can always, yeah, it was just reported wrong. That's what it was.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, Tim, because I was going to say myself that let's not make Star Wars something that's exceptional in the sense of how things really are. Think back, you know, here we are in Washington. Think of all the, quote, revisionist history and biography of anybody that's a great, you know, Eleanor Roosevelt. How was Eleanor Roosevelt perceived and written about in the 1940s? How is she perceived and written about today? Think of anybody, Franklin Roosevelt, Martin Luther King, Theodore Roosevelt. Yeah, just on and on and on. You know, great men and women, or not so great men and women. That you know, it's exactly as you said, Tim. And so, why would we expect the Star Wars if we're trying to, you know, maintain our connection with it? I guess the term is all the retcons or potential retcons. Well, the retcons are happening every day in this town, for sure. You know, I mean, there's a lot of people that think Frank Underwood is real.
I'm glad you brought up the rebellion, though, because we are getting Star Wars Rebels in the fall. And I would say that both the films and the television shows have shown that they can take things from the expanded universe. So, for example, we got Coruscant in Phantom Menace. And we also got to see Mandalore, or a version of Mandalore, and a version of Dathomir.